WW1 Treaties. For the first set of questions, it will be regarding the treaties of Brest-Litovsk. Number one, define the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. Well, the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk was a peace treaty between the new Bolshevik government of Soviet Russia and the Central Powers, such as Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire. Therefore, this treaty was the mark of Russia's termination of participation in the war and revert back to the commitments it held previously to the Triple Entente alliance. However, the treaty only lasted between March through November of 1918, when Germany surrendered to the Allies. Number two, by 1917, what was the condition of Russia thanks to their involvement in World War I? The condition in Russia amidst the war grew worse. The strain of the war caused the Russian economy to nearly collapse. Civil unrest was brought by the mass war casualties and food shortages that occurred across the country, and the country was facing political struggles as well, with Tsar Nicholas II forced to abdicate his power. Number three, who opposed the pro-war provisional government? The pro-war provisional government was opposed by the Petrograd Soviet of the Workers and Soldiers Deputies, which was heavily leftist party-based. Number four, who were the Bolsheviks? The Bolsheviks was the Communist Party who were proponents of Russia's withdrawal from the war. Their leader was Vladimir Lenin, and their goal is to turn all political power over to workers and councils and immediately withdraw Russia from the war. Number five, what was the October Revolution? The October Revolution was an ongoing event between anti-government riots occurring in July 1917 up to November, where the Red Guards, a Soviet-formed paramilitary power, seized the Winter Palace and arrested the provisional government. Number six, what territory did Russia give up? The Treaty of Brest-Litovsk resulted in Russia giving up the Baltic states to Germany, the province of Kars Oblast to the Ottoman Empire, and losing any potential to control Ukraine by recognizing her independence. Now, on to the next set of questions where I will be talking about the Treaty of Versailles. Number one, who were the four primary leaders of the Paris Peace Conference and which countries did they represent? Well, the four primary leaders of the Paris Peace Conference were Georges Clemenceau, the Prime Minister of France, David Lloyd George, Chancellor of the Exchequer, sorry if I blundered that, Woodrow Wilson, the President of the United States, and Vittorio Orlando, an Italian statesman who represented Italy during the press conference. Number two, in at least 150 words, outline the American approach. The American approach that President Wilson took involved 14 main points which would establish the conditions for the truce. The goal of this approach is to take many of Wilson's domestic progressive ideas and turn them into foreign policies. These policies include the likes of free trade, open agreements, and democracy. This approach to interventionism was a bold approach made by the president, with many people across domestic circles having negatively strong reactions to it, but mattered not regardless, due to Wilson wanting to deliver on his expectations that he had promised for the post-war era. However, once Wilson arrived at the conference, he realized that many of the other powers had other motives as well. This meant that the other countries were often uncomplacent with other ideas and often found many of his points ultimately failing as France and Britain refused to adopt them. The reason why the American approach failed was that the United States had hoped for a more liberal and diplomatic war, but were in negotiations with France and Britain, two powerful empires who weren't willing to give up their colonial powers. Number three, what were Britain's four goals in the conference? Britain's four goals during the conference were ensuring the security of France, removing the threat of the German high seas fleet, settling territorial contentions, and supporting the League of Nations with that order of priority. This approach to the conference was more neutral compared to the U.S.'s optimistic approach to foreign policy and France's cynical views on Germany's punishment. Number four, what were the two French policy options? The two French policy approaches that Prime Minister Clemenceau can take are either the inflictive approach to weaken German militarily strategically and economically, or a more symbiotic approach where he would reestablish relations with Germany. However, when given offer on the latter approach, Germany refused, thinking of all of their offers as a trap to accept whatever comes from the peace treaty. Number 5. How was Italy treated during the negotiations, and what was the general reaction from the Italian people? Italy came into the conference with a neutral approach, only seeking out to what they were promised when joining the Allied powers. However, during Orlando's time in the conference, he was often ignored due to his inability to speak English and was not given all for what he promised in territories. This led to a general disappointment in Italy, leading to many believing that they were betrayed by the Allied powers, ultimately leading to the rise of Italian fascism. Now, the last set of questions I will be answering today is on the final treaties. Number 1. What was the impact of the treaty on Austria-Hungary, Russia, and the Ottoman Empire? Well, Austria-Hungary was impacted by the treaties by having a country split into several states: Austria, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and Yugoslavia. Because of these shifts of territories, the Hungarians had lost over 60% of their original territories. Sorry, typo. The Russian Empire, after withdrawal, had lost much of its western frontier, turning into newly independent nations such as Estonia, Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland. Number 2. Describe Article 231. What did economist John Maynard Keynes caution regarding it? Article 231, also known as the War Guilt Clause, essentially states that Germany must take full responsibility of its allies for causing all the damage, leaving Germany forced to disarm territorial concessions and cover reparation costs that are equal to around $442 billion in today's money. John Maynard Keynes, an economist, predicted that punishment was too harsh for Germany and that the cost reparations was excessive and counterproductive. Now, number 3. In my opinion, how would this treaty have led to World War II? Well, I think that the Treaty of Versailles would lead to World War II by the fact that many German citizens would feel mistreated, as they were given all the responsibility of the war, being fully aware that there were other contributors to their effort and not just them solely. Furthermore, the immense collapse that would have proceeded afterwards economically would lead to many riots across Germany, giving space for radical views as Germans try to find a certain group of people to try to pin their problems to, ultimately spreading to anti-Semitic views and Nazi ideologies across the country.